So I suppose, first of all, to talk about fascia, we've talked about this before, I think. I'm not sure if we've used this. I always think this illustrates quite well. This is just like a wrapping for a bottle, but it's kind of like a lattice type arrangement. But in muscles, we talked about anterior tibialis before. We said that's the classic example of a muscle that tends to be quite overstretched most of the time. And that's down to neurology. But then the fascia will start to be affected by that. So we can see this lattice has the ability to either stretch across its length or stretch along its length. So you can imagine when we see it all opened up like this, as the muscle shortens, it thickens. You can feel this on your bicep if you bend your arm. As that thickens, the available length on these fibers is taken up by this widening process, that it's increasing its diameter along its, if you like, its x-axis. So when it does that, you'll see it gets shorter at either end. So some muscles get stuck in this shortened position, but muscles like anterior tibialis get stuck in this long position. Now you can see the gaps disappear when I pull. All of the available movement is taken up with lengthening. Now, fascia is endlessly more involved and complicated than this because this is one layer. So we can imagine on the outer layer of a muscle that we actually have several of these, and they work by sliding out almost in a telescope type manner. If you think of like sliding apart the components in a telescope, or a car aerial is the other example we oftentimes give. So when they're slid out and the fibers are close together like that, if we don't really move them very much, there is a process of adhesion that takes place, sticking together between fibers. Now when the muscle tries to shorten, these fibers are stuck together, so they can't move this way. So it's difficult for the muscle to move back into its compartment. It's kind of squeezed in its own wrapper. And as we said, that compresses lymphatic vessels. It means that metabolites like lactic acid can't get out of the muscle. They start to accumulate. And in the case of anterior tibialis, we'll get like shin splints. So one is that fascia being stuck along. In other cases, like in our bicep, where we have our arms bent a lot, the fascia tends to stick more in a shortened position. So if we think about the short muscle, it's like the telescope has been closed and now we've got rust between the layers. So it can't really lengthen properly. So as a result, when we try to lengthen, it'll do other things like shove our arm bone up and create impingement, or roll our scapula and create winging of the scapula and forward head, forward shoulder postures. So the fascia has to be free to move. It tends to get stuck in different positions.